Hey everyone, it's time for Geocache Talk. Whether you're at work, in the car, wherever you are, we hope you enjoy the show. Please give it a like and subscribe on iTunes, Stitcher, or Google Play, or wherever you can find it, so that you can get all the weekly Geocache Talk goodness. Big thanks to the Trout Bugs for the music and our patrons, Doug Jones, Joshua and Caleb Slinkard, Tom Brotherman, Joshua, the geocaching vlogger, Nick Hubbard, Andrew Tiepkin, Cecilia Perez, Sydney Sawyer, Valena Mahar, Jane Jewell, Memphis Mafia, Craig Michelle, the Geo Gearheads, Zach Fick, the Deadliest Cachers, Tim Terrell, Neil Moore, Molly the Geocaching Dog, Dee and David Vickery, Geocaching Adam, Lori Post, Peter Stepanek, the No Code Geocachers, Paula Hughes, Ed Shaper, and John Langston. If you'd like to become a patron, head on over to patreon.com/geocache talk for more details. Patrons get path tags, coins, and there's some work on the coins that we're working on right now, so stay tuned for more on that. And other geocaching swag during the year, as well as invites to special events. We're having our patron night event next Sunday before the show, and those are only for patrons. Support levels start at as little as $3 a month. Well, let's get started. Welcoming my co-host, Sydney.
Good evening.
And Jesse.
Good evening. I was already chatting with the chat room, so I got distracted already.
That's okay. And enjoying some Shark Week, I can see.
Maybe a little bit. Like we were talking about before the show, Shark Week is just behind Super Bowl, World Series, and March Madness in my household. So I'll try to keep the noise down behind us, but there's a lot of shark stuff going on.
I just saw a shark swim just past you.
Look! There
it is.
It's going after me now. Okay. That's only for the viewers, of course. Nobody listening understands what I'm talking about.
Well, we paint with our words, so we're painting the picture of the fact that there's sharks right behind you, Jesse.
And I'm also literally in my clothing getting eaten by a shark right now. But
yeah,
you'll have to check out the YouTube to see that.
Wearing a sweet shark hat. That's awesome.
That's right.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about events that we just came from, and I think we had somebody who was at the Berkshire Geo Bash. So, Sydney, give us an update.
That was me. I went to that.
That is you.
That is me. Yes. So yeah, that was yesterday. It was in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, which is not far from me.
Cool.
Right.
All those tiny little states up there.
Right. There are some very small states in the Northeast. But I went to that. It was really hot out. There was a lot of people there. I met, Team Spada from US Geocaching Hour.
Yep, that's awesome.
And we had a great time, did a bunch of lab caches. It was great. And today I went to another event, the Captain Rodney's event, and I got some sweet cooking sauces.
Check that out.
It was great. They even had samples.
Because they're big geocachers and they're traveling around the country going to events and very cool.
It was fun.
So how, as Jesse and I always have to ask, how were the lab caches?
The lab caches this year were pretty good. They actually had 2 different sets. So there's 20 total, which was a lot of lab caches. The first 10 were you kind of drive around pretty much the whole county and go to different areas. It was all about fairies. It was like a fairy theme. Mm-hmm. So you would find like a little fairy statue hidden in wherever. And then the other 10 were actually on the event grounds. It was at a ski resort. So they were like highlighting all the different things you can do at the event. And they had the code words hidden around there.
Did you get them put in Cachely, or how did you end up doing them? Did you do set waypoints or?
Right. So the set that was all around the county, I did put in Cachely. It was a little bit of a workaround, like I think we talked about last week.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
But the other 10 didn't get published until the day of the event. And since they were all right there, I mean, you kind of could just follow the groups of people around and you kind of got to where they were going. So
that's cool though.
Yeah, it was fun.
That's kind of interesting. They had 20 lab caches.
Yeah, that's a lot.
that they. Are you surprised that they were allowed to have that many? Is what?
Yeah, and I've heard about that changing. I heard about one doing 15. And like we had that talk about it recently. We're talking about megas or whatever, but
Right.
10 lab caches was kind of the standard for a while. And now it seems to be they're kind of changing that up a little bit, which is good. They should. It's experimental. They should change that up. So
absolutely. We had fun. I mean, Jesse and I had a great time together doing our ones at the Texas Challenge. And, you know, in case anybody wants to know, just a quick, fast reminder is if you can't get them put into whatever app you're going to use, of course, you're going to use Cashly. I don't know why you
obviously,
but do what we did, which was we just picked a random cache that was nearby and we just started adding waypoints to it. And all the waypoints were just the lab caches. So we had them in there and we could just sit there and navigate to every waypoint. So it worked out great. So,
well, and the good thing is you have a while for them too. So did you have a full 7 days for those, Sydney, or were they a shorter time frame?
Yeah. So, the ones that were like spaced out all around the county, they actually started like this past week, like on Wednesday or something. Cause they had events kind of all throughout this past week, leading up to Saturday, but we just got there on Friday. So there was people that, you know, had completed them on like Thursday or whatever. And so those were, you know, kind of a longer term ones. But the ones on Saturday at the grounds, they just published that morning. So you had to wait until you got to the event to figure out where they were. But then you still have like a 10-day period to, you know, get your code words in. Even if, you know, you've already found them in your home, you have 10 days to log them.
That's good.
Our other quick note before we get into the show topic and our guest tonight, we're got our week 2 of the Friend League. Well, let's go back to week 1. Is everybody fired up about getting their souvenir on Wednesday? Right? Is that when we're getting our souvenir?
Apparently.
Did we get the first one, or
we don't get the souvenir yet?
They're making you wait.
Making you wait. So, so the next one just posted the requirements. So you earn the souvenir for the second map piece, and you collect 10 gold coins individually. Wah, wah, wah.
So that would be either an event or a cache with 10 favorite points, right?
Well, sir.
Right. Or 2 caches.
Well, sir.
Go ahead.
Those things that earn you coins have changed.
Oh.
So you can't do the same thing again. But there's there's new things that you can do.
So what are the new things?
Oh, say, for instance, if you retrieve a trackable from a cache, you get 5 gold coins. If you drop a trackable in a cache, you get 10 gold coins. So there's your coins. Just go out, put a trackable in a cache, and you get enough coins right there.
Notice how they made the attend an event only is now 7.
7.
What? So you
can't just attend an event.
So if you go to an event, you fail. You're three gold coins short.
What if I log it twice? Oh, you can't do that anymore. That's right.
Can't do it anymore.
Throw the shot.
Oh man!
But if I attend one event and pick up a trackable while I'm there, then I'm golden.
There you go.
Did you get that? Golden? See what I did there?
Yeah, we saw that. we chose to move on from that, but
I thought it was funny. But go
ahead.
Anyway,
what do y'all think about the fact that week 2 is an unfriend league? It's the non-friend league now because you don't have to have friends anymore.
Well, you didn't have to have friends to begin with. You could have easily done it by yourself.
You could have, and I'm trying not to be critical because Mudak got really on me last week about being critical about this thing. So
don't be critical, Gary. That's not your role.
I'm not going to be critical. That's y'all's role.
That's my role.
I have to be Switzerland. You guys are the hostile countries out there. So anyway, yeah, interesting. Find and log a cache, 5 gold coins. Find and log a cache with 10. You get 7. Again, they changed it. Attend event 7. Retrieve as Sydney mentions 5, and drop a trackable is 10. So anyway, it's out there. It's in the show notes, and we're moving on.
Can I drop my own trackable and pick it back up?
Sure.
Well, Cecilia Perez mentioned that. She's not going to do it, but she did mention that would should get you 15. But Oh well, that's it. That's all we're talking about. That we got bigger thing. We got bigger fish to fry tonight, and so especially the sharks behind you there.
That's right. They're coming to get me.
All right, let's jump right into show number 59 for Sunday, July 23rd. So welcome our friend ChileHead to the show. Welcome to Geocache Talk.
Hello, thanks.
It's good to have you on.
Good to be here.
Yeah, we've been looking forward to this. We've had a lot of little inner talks between our little group about this whole intercaching and mob caches, and so a lot to talk about tonight. So we're just going to get right to it. First, Tim, tell us a little bit about your background. When did you start geocaching, and any other geocaching little tidbits you want to throw at us?
Let's see. I think I started 2003 or so. Back when there were no lampposts or guardrail caches. I was looking at it recently, thinking, oh yeah, my first year was all trail caches, but I'm a snob for caches. Yeah.
That's another show we might have you back on. Is that one?
I started reviewing actually in 2006, and I've been a reviewer since 2006. Yes, 11 years. Yeah, so I'm not a high numbers. I mean, if you look at me, I don't even hit 5,000 finds yet in 13, 14 years or so. Yeah, so that's it as far as my cache history. I do a lot of. I'm a software engineer, so that's what I do all day long. So I kind of tie that into some of my caches as well, which is how the Intercache and some of my other caches that use more software tricks and fun things like that. That's where it comes from.
Well, that's very, very cool. And we're going to talk about, just to let people know, we're going to do intercaching discussion, and we're going to talk about mob caches, and who knows where we go from there after that. But that should be that's a full hour right there or more. So we're going to fit all that in. So I guess let's just dive right into intercaching. So I'm completely new to intercaching. I've heard of it and I've looked at it, and we're going to talk about it. But Sydney, we'll start with you. Have you done any intercaches?
I have done one.
Okay. Was it Tim's or was it?
No, I don't think it was.
You haven't done mine that are right here in town? Come on.
No, I'm terrible.
That's terrible. Okay. It's all right. We'll get there.
And for those of you that don't know, Tim and I live very close to each other, so that's why.
Right.
But no, I haven't. I've done one. It was at a nice park around here, and you go around. Oh well. I'll let them explain after. But I haven't set one up yet. I'm looking for like a cool location where I can do something really fun and interesting. So.
Very cool.
I'm holding off.
And then Jesse, you've gotten a little more experience with intercaching, I think, being a Where I Go dude. I think intercaching kind of scratches that Where I Go itch a little bit. Is that correct?
It does. I've done a couple of intercaches in a couple different states, and then I've set up several. So I've done a few that I published for myself, and then I've done a few that I published or had other people had published for themselves. The very first one I did was I just went with an easy one, and it was like the beer tour type, which are very common on intercaches if people have done them. Just the tour type, like same thing with Where I Go. I basically emulated Where I Go to start and then branched out from there. But they're quick and easy to set up, and we'll get into the details of that, of course, in a little bit. But it's pretty neat, too, because you can get in, when we talk about how you set them up, you can get in and really play around and experiment with whatever you want to do before you even publish it or set one up. So that's a pretty fun aspect of it.
Yep. So Tim, what was the genesis? How did intercaching come about?
I was always interested in the Where I Goes. Problem I had with Where It Goes is creating one was more difficult, right? As you had a program in Luau, can't remember how to say it,
right?
Or you could use Nick in France has a web interface, and I think what's his name? Ranger Fox has.
Ranger Fox is
I haven't used his thing yet, so that makes it a little bit easier. But the original version was you basically had to write software, and it wasn't necessarily real easy to do. I also didn't have like that you had to load it into your GPS or load it into your phone if you're using one of the Where I Go apps, which I don't know if they existed too much back then or not. So I wanted something where the average person could just go out and say, I want to make a point here, a point here, a point here, and then connect them together in some manner. So I think what you're just saying before is the beer run or the tour, right? As you go from point to point to point, and as you get to each point, you either are given the coordinates for the next one, or maybe you have to answer a question about a sign. So the first one I put out was a tour of Fairport, the town I live in, that has maybe 15, 20 historical markers, and it's a walk. You walk to the tour, or you walk to the marker, answer a question about some year or some object down there, and that will give you the coordinates to the next point. And that was kind of cool. That's kind of how most of the Where It Goes that I've done are set up. I know you can do a lot more with them. So the next phase then in intercaching was adding more of the aspects that Where I Go have. So I have something called constraints. So I can say, all right, only make this stage of the intercache available if you visited another stage or if you've picked up an object. So that's more kind of the adventure style where you can place objects around the game and you can pick them up and you can't really do anything with them, but just the fact that you've got them in your inventory opens up other avenues or other paths through the game.
Sure. What was your first intercache? Obviously, created this. What was the first? Roughly what year was that you put that out?
I could look it up, but yeah, it's probably about four years ago, maybe.
Okay. So about 2013-ish, roughly.
Yes, roughly then. I mean, it was. I actually had it hosted. I was saying this before the show. Had it hosted elsewhere first. It was originally on one of Google's servers using something called Google App Engine. And then I had a client that actually wanted something very similar to this, so I wrote a version for them that kind of tied into their software. It's a tour company in town that makes like museum tours and things like that. And then once it did that, I wanted to kind of move it off of Google's infrastructure onto my own server, and that's when I added then the the other aspects, like I said, the inventory and constraints.
Sure. Well, we're going to get into those. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So just to let people know, website is intercaching.com.
Inter is for interactive geocache, basically.
Yeah, INTER caching.com. And that'll get you to the front page, and then from there, nicely set up. You got your release notes up there at the top, and it kind of gets you going. Immediately tells you what's an intercache, which is nice to, because people are going to go there and they're going to be like, well, I want more info and just on what is an intercache. So
so for most of the cache pages, they actually have a link to their game, so it goes directly. So you go to the cache page and you click the link to start the game. So you wouldn't actually go to the home page at all. Right,
but for people listening that want to kind of dip their toe in the whole thing, get started. Intercaching.com. And so the ones that Jesse, the ones that you have done, you said were like that. What have you done any yet that are more complex, or what are the things about intercaching that are sort of intriguing you, being the Where I Go expert? What is something about intercaching that
well, two things. One, of course, I'm an early adopter for anything that comes out in geocaching. If something new comes out, I'm going to try it and see what happens. And the second thing is I'm very pro Where I Go. I love building the programs. I build them for everybody. Even with their limitations, I like them a lot. Having said all that, the first thing that I noticed that intercaching does that Where I Go can't do, and I'm one that can talk about just about every limitation Where I Go has and what you can do on it, is you can't put a live video, a video in a Where I Go. You just can't do it. There's no way to make it happen. Intercaching, it's super easy. You can post because you can do an HTML link to a video, and you can include a video in your intercache, which is great.
Cool. Yeah,
so that's a whole different arena of stuff that you can do, right? And you can do sounds like you can in a Where I Go, and you can do many other things. But that's one of the things that intrigued me from the very beginning, that you could, because he's got it open enough that you can do your own code in it. You can do a lot of stuff. You can set up a menu. You can do an HTML-based menu. You can do video. You can do a lot of neat things. It's not just, everybody goes out and does just like everybody hides an easy cache for their first cache. The Intercache, you do the tour cache, at first, 0.1234. But it has a lot more possibilities than people initially jump in and find out. So we've done ones that are trivia based, that are location based, that you can link anything else up into it because he's got the HTML code open for it. So it's the possibilities are pretty neat what you can do with it.
So basically getting kind of into that aspect of it, Tim, because I noticed that one of the things you mentioned here is it's part virtual cache, part multi-cache, part puzzle cache, and part adventure. That's for sure the ones I've seen. And we're going to reference one of them some tonight in case anybody wants to play along as we talk about these. We are going to talk about one called Return to Oz as we go, but we'll all talk about other things too. But we are going to reference that one a little bit. That's one that Tim has. So, Tim, what are some things about that that have you put that blurb in about part virtual, part multi, part puzzle?
Well, I mean, the virtual part, of course, is there's virtual stages, and most people make a intercache that has all virtual stages until the end. I mean, there's nothing saying you could do something, anything you want. So that's kind of the virtual aspect of it. I mean, puzzle, of course, is like you can add in. Got a fire somewhere?
Sydney, but she muted for the moment. That's good. Thanks.
Oh, is that Michael Phelps jumping in there behind you, Jesse?
Oh yeah, is that?
No, this is just sharks behind me, just general sharks.
Oh, there we go. You got some guy back there just a second ago. But
yeah, it's multi because most of them are set up as a multi-cache. I mean, multi stages. In fact, that's what Groundspeak asked me to ask reviewers to have people set them up as. The first couple I did were I set up as puzzles because they didn't really fit what I thought was a multi. So most you'll probably see as multis now, but actually multis is the official way you're supposed to list them.
Okay.
I think some are listed as mysteries, and I don't think anyone's going to complain too much if you list one way or another.
Sure. Very good. I like that talking about the aspect Jesse's talking about is you could. So as far as like where I go, is it sort of the same thing as far as like it's zonal, if you want to use that term, is that you have to get to another area and then you create a zone and you can make that zone any size, or
you can make the zone any size. It's a bit simpler than Where I Go. So I think Where I Go, you can create a zone of any arbitrary shape, right? As you can make a square or just drag out an area. I kept it simple for this one. Is you specify a point and a radius in. Sorry for all the Americans, which I am, but I think I put it in meters. It's just easier to keep it in one set. But yeah, so you specify, I think, the radius in meters, or unless I add. No, I did add. I can't remember. Maybe I did add options for feet. But meters or feet, you can say 30, 40 feet if you want. So as long as you're within that radius, the next stage of the intercache opens up and you can do something with it. Typically, I tell people don't make it any less than 20 or 25 feet or so, just because accuracy of GPSs on phones is not as good, in my opinion, as my Garmin. So I know when I've gone back to my own intercache, I get to the spot and it says, well, I'm 40 feet away. It's like, well, I'm right here. Yeah, so it becomes more difficult if you're telling people to go to a sign and they can't actually go to the sign. They got to go to a spot 50 feet away because of an error in your GPSs or your devices.
Right.
So I think some people have made radiuses of multiple miles, so you could kind of do it. I'm not sure what you do with that. I have not done anything like that.
I have.
I remember somebody asked me about it. I couldn't remember if it was you or not.
I think it was me.
Okay.
I built one for somebody for an event where they had several people. It was a big event, so 100 plus people in an area, and they wanted a large radius. And it was a trivia-based one, so it was a 2-stage cache, pretty simple one, based on a large area that the people were going to be in. And then they watched a video and answered questions based on, and it was a geocaching.com video, one of their promotional videos they put out. So it was an annual event, and once they went through and answered all the questions, I take that back. That was for a mob cache. That was a large area. That wasn't an intercache.
Wait,
the intercache was a trivia one, but the mob cache one was the second part of the series. So it gave them information for the mob cache after that. So
Well,
yeah,
well, that's cool.
I kind of mingled the two together.
Little preview of mob cache right there for you.
Oops, I didn't talk about that.
That's okay. No, that's good. So you can do, like you can specify that. You can also with the questions. Can you do different types? Like my where I go here is just multiple choice, but can you make it where they actually like tough? Can you make it like they have to answer the question exact, or like a lab cache, or
right now there's only one option, and that's exact. So you say, what's the year that this building was erected, and you enter in 1854. And if you enter it wrong, or if it's a question about a word and you type in the word, you got a typo, or you have a space wrong or something, that's going to be an error. So that's one of the things on the list is more options for questions. I mean, I think it's case insensitive. So if you don't type the uppercase T or something, it's fine. But in general, it's like a lab cache where you have to answer it exactly right.
We ran into that problem, Jesse and I, with this. How many different versions of this thing? How many these words were like? Do we put 2 spaces? Do we put a space? I mean, we were just like racking our brain. Like, we shouldn't have to do this. It should be easier than that. But anyway, so that's okay. So that's cool.
Yeah, I tell people to make the questions easy. Like usually the number ones are the easiest ones, right? Is a number is a number, and you don't have to worry about do you have an apostrophe in the word, or a dash or a space. That's. But yeah, you can do it whatever you want. If you want to make it hard, go for it.
Yes, you want to make it maddening.
I guess it depends on how hard you want to make it, right? You can make
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but there are no limitations. You answer it wrong, you can answer right again. I don't have any kind of 3 times and you're out kind of a thing. You can answer 100 times if you want.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead, Jesse. I was thinking that.
I was looking back through. I knew there was one I was thinking of. I'm looking back through the ones I built for other people. I did build one for an Intercache that was a play anywhere Intercache. So it didn't really tell you how close you had to be, but it said you could be pretty far away, and I set the mileage really far, and it was basically trying to emulate a play anywhere where I go, where you just get on from home and answer the questions, and then it gives you the next stage, just to see if it could be done. And I built that one for somebody else, and it worked that way too. So they could log on from pretty much anywhere they're inside the zone. They could answer the questions.
Okay.
And then they go to the next one. And then you mentioned that it's pretty wide open. The interesting thing is I found another one that I built for somebody else that had the zones hidden. So they had to wander through a park and find different things based on the clues.
Yeah.
But it didn't, like that one selection you have where they can either show the pointer or not, the arrow or not.
Yep.
If you turn that off, so they had to wander through the park based on the clues, go to the signs, like you said. But the radius was pretty big. And as long as he got in the area, it gave him an indication, and they got to answer the question. So those two little, he's got several things you can select when you're building one, and it makes a huge difference in how the game plays. So,
yeah, I've actually never used that feature myself. I put it in, and then I've been meaning to actually make sure it works. So I'm glad it works. So.
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So if people want to see, if you go to the intercaching.com website, or you can do it on your phone even, and you don't have one around you, that's okay. Just pull up any cache, any Intercache, and you can kind of get into the guts of it. You can't do anything because you're not close enough typically but you're not currently in the range. But the good thing about it though is, and Tim, I like the fact that you can at least get it open enough that you can take a look at it and get an idea of kind of what you might, and then if you could, obviously you could build one, was probably the better way to do it. But, so you've got the range, you got your compass pointer, you've got maps, you've got helps, you've got distances and different things like that. So, did you, like Jesse said, you can turn off your pointer. You can turn off parts of that. I mean, so people can't see.
Yeah, so you can't see where you're going towards. You can see that, okay, you've got a question. It might tell you go north 100 feet, whatever you wanted to type in. But if you wanted to hide the coordinates where they're going and just have letterbox style clues, you can do that, and then when they get there, it will reveal then the next stage.
Right, and then also in the top part of that again is sort of the adventure portion of it. So you could put in clues in the pictures, or you could do different things with the with your narration portion.
Yes, yeah. I don't know if you can show this. I just emailed you a storyboard for one of mine. I don't know if you can show that or not. That kind of shows kind of the capabilities and the interactions between the various stages.
Yeah, I'll pull that up while we keep talking about these. And yeah, I can show that.
Yeah, I mean, it shows coordinates and things, but I don't care if I'm not sensitive about that if people see it.
Mm-hmm.
So
okay, no problem. All right, let me pull that up right now.
No, I'm gonna know.
Yeah, you can go right to the final now.
Woohoo!
Yeah,
I'm just kidding.
we're not gonna show it to
probably
her.
forget.
We block her.
I'll have to go back and watch the YouTube video again. What was that? What was that number? Was that a 4 or?
I'm gonna mush all that stuff out here in a minute. So. All right, so everybody seeing my screen?
No.
Okay, hang on a second.
There it is.
Did it go? All right, make sure I'm clicked on me. Okay, good. All right, there we go. Okay.
So I mean, well, you can't really see any of the text here. I can't see the text, at least on my screen.
No,
unless you can make it bigger. But this is something I made for a kind of a presentation I gave to Groundspeak a few years ago on this. So this is a Wizard of Oz one I was mentioning before.
Yeah.
And it's in a local park here, and it gives you a little information about kind of your job. The first, so you start off, of course, in Kansas. We actually had some tornadoes touch down today in Rochester.
Wow.
Coincidentally, which we never have. We had 2 in Buffalo the other day. But anyway, so the first thing you have to do is find Toto. And I can't. It's been a long time since I've looked at this, so I can't remember what the flow is.
So it goes there, and then it goes to this screen, which I can see this far. I can get this far.
Okay.
So you get to the farmhouse.
You get to the farmhouse, and it tells you, you need to go. So if you scroll down a little bit, there's there's the pointer. It tells you you're 2 meters away. The radius of the zone is 30. So 39.4 feet actually maps to, was it 10 meters? I think that's why it's off a little bit, because I said before everything's in meters. So you get some odd little things like that.
Sure. And then
mostly you go by the arrow. It tells you the destination in degrees, which really isn't all that useful. But yeah, so the way this one works is you first have to go, find Professor Marvel, Auntie, I can't remember who they are. There's 3 people you have to visit, and you have to pick up Toto. And once you've done all that, then the tornado comes, and you have to go back to the farmhouse.
Pick up Toto. I love that.
Yeah, you pick up Toto. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that.
There's not much you can do with him, so you pick Toto up, and that's about it. So just the fact you have him in your inventory means now that's going to open up more phases of the game.
Right. So if you don't pick him up, then
you can just keep wandering between the next destinations, like Anti.
Yeah. Right.
Gulch. You can go back and forth, but once you visit those 3 things and pick up Toto, now like I said, the tornado I think comes.
Let me go over there. Down here. Yep. Okay. Yep. Go to NEM.
Yep. Oh, if you notice the red text there, it's debug mode. So when you develop these things, rather than going out in the field to test to make sure it works, is you can do this all on your computer or on your phone.
Cool.
That turns off the actual validation of your GPS coordinates, just so you can test out the workflow. And typically I do that, and then once I'm satisfied, now I actually go out and play it for real myself, with the debug off.
That's awesome. Yeah, that's helpful. And then you arrive there. You get to choose where you go next.
Yeah, so this is now you've got you can choose any destination you want. You don't do them in any order. There is a map view, so you can see the locations on the map as well. I think one of those options is broken now. I got to double check. I think it was been broken for a couple months now, but yeah. Now you've already gone to Oz. You find the line. You find the Tin Man. You find the Who else?
Cowardly Lion.
Scarecrow.
Yeah.
And then you go look for the witch.
Cool.
And you somewhere along the way you pick up a bucket of water, of course, and you throw the water at the witch.
That's awesome.
And then you find the cache.
Well, can that's awesome.
Yeah.
So, so on the destinations, let's choose your destination. So, like you said, so let's say you have, let's say you do like this one. You have, let's say, 5 destinations. Can you sort of create the adventure in such a way that a person goes to number 1, number 2, number 3, then they have to go back to 1, then they can jump to 4, so they can jump around the storyline and the way this works. You can kind of, can you make them? I mean, I don't want to make people do a lot of. I mean, Jess and I did one. We were back and forth 1,000 times. It's like, okay, I've lost the fun of this. But can you?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, you can. Yeah, when you edit these things, what you typically do is you go out in the field, you mark all the points that you're interested in. So in my case, I marked out, like, where the characters were, where the farmhouse was, where the witch was, and then back at home, I said, okay, now what destinations are visible from what other destination? And you do that for every single destination in the game. Now, by default, when you play it, is you mark waypoint 1, you go to waypoint 2, and waypoint 2 is automatically visible from waypoint 1. And then, so forth. You make waypoint 3, and then waypoint 3 is visible from waypoint 2. And it gives you your typical linear, the first easy way of doing this. And then you don't have to do any other editing. Once you add more complexity in the game, now you can go back in and edit and say, well, not only do I want to go from 1 to 2, but I want to be able to go back from 2 to 1. So you go back and you edit waypoint 2, and you say, all right, which other destinations are visible from 2? And by default, 3 will be, but I can also go back and say, well, I want 2 to be visible. Okay. And that way, when I'm at 2, or 1, that way when I'm at waypoint 2, I can select either 3 or 1. It's actually, I don't know how well I explained this. It's actually fairly easy. You just map it all out and you say, okay, what can I see from every destination? And also can I see this if I don't have this object in my possession? And there's no code. It's all click, check boxes that you do. So it limits what you can do compared to a Where-A-Go, but it's a lot easier. At least in the old style, yeah.
Right, and that's where some of those we mentioned earlier. You referred to them as constraints. So that's kind of where you could create some. You could be very creative with your constraints to make the game that particular cartridge funner to get through. That you got to work through some of those. So.
Yeah, I mean, there's a view. You can view all the stages of your game as the owner of it. That is, you can view all the stages in a directed graph, just to make sure that you've laid them out correctly. So that's a nice thing I do for debug. I don't have a picture of that anywhere, but people can do that if they want to see it.
Well, and it's got options too. It's natural to compare this to Where-A-Go because of the programming aspect. But one thing you can do in Intercaching that you can't do in Where-A-Go also is you can't link Where-A-Go cartridges, right? So you can with Intercaches.
Oh, sure,
so
sure.
If you're doing multiple choices and things like that, you can link a separate Intercache because it's all just web-based.
It's all web, yeah.
Yeah, you can't, and because I've tried, you can't do that with a Where-A-Go. So I've been able to do that with an Intercache, and so that's something that that a Where-A-Go would never be able to do because it's an offline downloadable cartridge. So
okay,
that's a pretty cool aspect of it. I think. I don't know if that was intentional, but it's a very advanced aspect that Where-A-Gos can't do.
I didn't know anyone actually did that. So yeah.
Yeah, I built a full menu, and you can select different Intercaches. So that's a possibility for people that want to link several for a complex game.
Okay.
That's
cool. So the nice thing that you can do that eventually, and I've been promising people this for years, and I haven't done it, but hopefully this fall, like I said, because I'll have more time. I do consulting on the side, and that often takes up a lot of my time too, and I'm not doing anything currently. But the most requested feature is a time constraint. So you can make a night cache with an Intercache. So you can say, I only want these waypoints visible between 9 and midnight, or however you want to set it up. Or you could have, and you do that by I have it mostly done. I just haven't deployed it. And you can do that on each stage of the game. So you can say, I want this one only visible between 9 and 10, and this one only visible between 10 and 11, however you want to set it up.
Could you do
I
a
like that.
you do a time constraint where you have to kind of Jesse'd love this, where you have to run through the stages or try to run to each stage before you.
I haven't. That's not on my list, but yeah, that would certainly be doable. I don't. Well, you can do that on a where it go.
Mhm.
Sure, but I was thinking that'd be kind of cool to get a clock.
But you can't.
on there.
As far as I know, you can't do a time constraint on a where it go.
Okay.
Wall clock time.
Yeah, you can. You can do a wall clock time constraint on where I go, and you can check it at every stage based on the time on their device.
Oh, so you could cheat it then. You could make your time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
You can absolutely cheat it.
Whereas
Which is the problem with time constraints, right?
yeah, so with mine you can't cheat it because it's going to use the server time,
Ooh, I love that.
not device time.
See?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that so much.
Yeah.
Jesse's
Sweet.
excited.
That's right.
Some of the notes you said you may also specify an optional confirmation question to make sure they're yeah, so you can actually have a question at the beginning just to make sure that people are really at that location and they're not trying to armchair the thing.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, you can cheat Intercaches right now because it is web-based technology, and you can. I mean, if you're a software guy or a hacker, I mean, you can certainly cheat the system. Which is why I've got the questions in there, just to make it a little bit more difficult. And if you want to cheat it, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Go for it.
Right. I mean, if they want to cheat, they would just lie and say they went and found it and never left their house, right? So.
Oh, sure.
Yeah. There's no way to get around that.
So, Tim, I'm going to have you take off your Intercaching hat for a moment, put on your reviewer hat for a second.
Oh.
Okay.
Oh boy, I tell you, I know. Dun, dun, dun. What do you look? What does geocaching.com look for, or what are some things that people need to know? Because people are going to go out and start creating these. I know you're going to get we're going to get a flood of these. I know. We're laughing about. What are you talking about?
And we want to hear all about it when you get a flood of them too. So
yeah, and if you create one of these, send us an email because I'm going to prove Sydney wrong because we have people all over the world listening to the show, and so go out and create an Intercache and then email us at geocachetalk@gmail.com, and we'll mention you probably as we talked about this week. So what is it from geocaching.com's perspective? Do you want us to do to help? Help your job make your job easier as a reviewer?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure of the questions.
Well, when we want to try to link this to an actual cache, what are some things you want to see from a person creating one of these to make a reviewer's life a lot easier when they're creating
so I've already given the reviewers access to all the data in an Intercache.
Okay.
So if you submit one, they can see all the stages, all the coordinates and everything else already. So that made it easier for them to review. I'm sure nobody knows anybody that would lie to a reviewer, but it's shocking. It does happen. Yes, believe it or not.
No way.
No, I can't believe that.
That's a whole other show.
Yeah. So this does let you verify, making sure you don't have people walking in areas they're not supposed to be in. In general, that's not a problem. It's really leaving physical objects, but that just makes the reviewers' life a little bit easier. I mean, originally I did it for myself when I put this out, but yeah, once it opened up to more people, that was something I decided to do. It wasn't something Groundspeak asked me to do. It was I didn't have it originally when I released this. But I had talked to Groundspeak. I talked to Brian Roth, he's now the president. He wasn't at the time. He was the co-founder or whatever his title was then. But I did talk to him to make sure there's no legal issues with the Intercache because they do have 1 or 2 software patents on Wherigo. So I want to make sure this didn't violate anything, or they didn't have any concern about it.
And you prefer them to be? Do you prefer them to be multicache just to make it easier, or?
I don't care. I mean, if they're a multicache or a puzzle, that's fine with me. I think officially they're supposed to be a multicache.
Okay.
But because of the nature of them, they can go really either way.
Okay.
They obviously can't be a traditional. They can't be a letterbox. Well, probably not a letterbox.
I think there is a letterbox.
Is there? Yeah. I could get. I guess I could see a letterbox version of it.
Well, Wouldn't
It can't be an
wouldn't that
Earthcache
really
version.
depend on how they set it up, though? I mean, like, because you're a reviewer, so you know the details, ins and outs. But like a multi-cache has multi-stages, just like a puzzle does. But isn't that dividing line like if you have to leave a stage and go home to figure it out, it's more of a puzzle than if you can go from stage to stage in the field? Isn't that the rule of thumb?
I mean, sort of. I mean, again, it's not. Regionally, there seem to be differences. In my area, it's more a multi-cache has multiple physical stages, although that doesn't have to be. I mean, like a cemetery cache could be set up as a cemetery cache where you go to, stones and get words and numbers to calculate the next one. People set those up as both multis or as puzzles. Probably the proper one for that, though, is actually multi, which is what Groundspeak said when I talked to, I probably used Kathy at headquarters, saying, well, it really plays mostly more like a multi. So
yeah, that's what I've seen most of them as.
But you can argue your case. I think it really depends on the reviewer.
So would you say that most reviewers know about this already? Or would some people maybe have a problem if they created one and maybe their reviewer didn't know about it yet or something like that?
Most probably know about it now because we have talked about them in our own forums. Occasionally I'll see a question, someone will say, oh, what's this Intercache thing? And that's when I respond, yeah, it's been vetted, it's cool, there's not a problem with it. Brian says it's okay. So yeah, so that does happen. Mostly with newer reviewers that come on board, they don't know about it.
Okay, so if someone put one out, they shouldn't have a real big problem with their specific reviewer.
They shouldn't. I mean, if they do, they can contact me and I can put them in touch with the right people.
Awesome.
And I think if you do, even on the just standard geocaching.com filters, if you search with the keyword Intercache, you'll find a bunch of them worldwide. So people can see examples of them everywhere.
Yeah, I mean, you'll probably find about 150 or so if you do that kind of a search. And I know there's other ones that don't have that keyword in the title. Those I can't find very easily. So, but they are pretty much in most of the states, and they're bigger, and they're pretty big in Europe too. Australia has a couple I know too.
Yeah, Seek One, Maggot. He's in our chat room, and he's been mentioning some about that. But we ready to change gears? Talk about mob caches at this point.
Sure.
Okay. Mob caches, the Geo Mob. So what is a mob cache? How did this come about?
So I actually did mob cache before lab caches came out. I mean, I knew lab caches are coming out. I talked to Brian quite often, and I'd heard about these. I thought, well, I want to do something different. So I actually did this hoping it would be one of the first lab caches. It wasn't, but I was on vacation up in the Adirondacks. I had my laptop, and a couple times sitting out on the deck and overwatching the water. That's when I wrote this thing, and it uses some of the same capabilities of an Intercache as far as using geolocation of the browser. It's quite a bit different though. So the idea of this one is get a bunch of people together at the same coordinates within a certain radius, and once you do that, the mob cache will present you a message. Generally, that message is go to coordinates XYZ to find the cache.
Right.
And that's pretty much it. I mean, it's a big old hack right now. It's not pretty. It doesn't have a lot of capabilities in it. It'd be nice if actually it presented you with a pointer. It doesn't even do that. It just says, here are the coordinates, and you got to type them in or copy paste them somewhere. And I haven't changed that in a couple of years either, just because, okay, I want to do something with it at some point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Is this a family-friendly show?
It is family-friendly, yes.
Okay, but I won't mention the one guy that contacted me. They had a different use for it.
Oh, yeah, no.
Not geocaching related.
Oh, right. Well, I can see you.
I'll tell you offline.
For it.
Yeah, we'll put a pin in that one because now I'm curious.
The mob cache website, in case you want to go check that out, is GeoTrail SW for Southwest.
Software.
Software? I'm thinking Southwest. I don't know why I think Southwest. Maybe
that's the name I use. But yeah, when I do consulting, that's my DBA name is GeoTrail Software. Okay,
so geotrailsw.com/mob. It will get you to the spot. But But still, that's a really cool idea. It reminds me a little bit of setting up a cache where, and WV Tim has one of these where you can't do it yourself. You have to have somebody with you. One person has to be at one location, one has to be at another nearby, and they have to kind of both push a button so each gets whatever information they need. So it's the idea is to create it into more of a social interaction type thing. So
yeah, I mean, they work well at events. The first one I put out a few years ago at our summer picnic, you needed to get like 10 or 12 people together, and that worked well in the event because you got a lot of people there. And I published it, right then when lots of people were at the event, so I had that advantage to do it then. That was still when I was still in the closet at the time, as far as nobody knew that I was the reviewer.
Right.
Or some people knew, not too many people.
Right.
But yeah, it works well at events. But then they found out that it doesn't get a lot of hits after that first day or second day. So I bumped the number down to like 3 or 4, and it still didn't get a lot of hits. So they're cool to have an event, and I don't see that. I didn't see mine at least get a lot of hits after that first day.
I'm thinking like my brain tends to think, I think, Jesse, like you do, but you could create. How hard of a mob cache could you create? Could you create one that it needs like 100, 200 people?
Well, it just so happens I have an answer to that.
And Jesse has the answer.
Because, and first, my caveat is I have awesome reviewers. Second, I always ask questions like that, but they're good about saying, yeah, that's too far, because I wanted to do one that was 100 people or more, but the limitation, so you can set the distance or the sphere. I don't know exactly how it worked. I think it's just a radius, right?
It's a radius, just like an intercaching. It's the same sort of thing.
What I wanted to do was set up one that was a Colorado mob cache. So you just have to get a certain number of people in the area, and I measured it out or whatever, in Colorado to log on at the same time. It was 100 people, and then you get the next clue, right? Because you can do a clue, not just coordinates, because you can write a message in there. He's got it set up that way. And I was told that is too much. So I said that was too far and too extensive, and even if it happened once, it would probably never happen again, so it'd be kind of a waste. So there is a limit to how many you want to set up, because if you get it too hard, you're gonna, like you just said, Tim, I don't know how many you had it set up for that event, but afterwards it got nothing, right? That's generally how they go. Yeah. So there is a limit. Even though it's really cool, we said I built one for another group that was doing an event, and it was 9 stages, so 9 different caches to a final cache. 5 people had to go to each city park, and they got the coordinates for the final cache and part of the clue for the final 10th cache. And that first weekend, it was great. It got tons of hits and favorite points, and then it went about 11 months and got one more group came through every couple months, and that was about it.
Well, you could modify afterwards, right? You could get it down to where you just had like one person have to go to each spot, or
you could, but then you get into the changing the difficulty, right? So, is it as difficult as it was originally? So, it is open. You could change it every day if you wanted to, but then is it not really fair? I wouldn't think from a reviewer. I would think that would be a little bit frowned upon if you started changing it without changing difficulties. They might. Dramatically. If it was like 5 to 2, it'd be fine. But 100 to 2, not so good.
Yeah.
Well, but is that considered? Well, we're gonna really get into some minutiae here.
Boy.
Is that really having more people? Does that really make the cache more difficult?
Absolutely, in my opinion.
In
you have to get 100
instances,
people to get to stage 2. That's got to be hard compared to me and my second or third device can do it.
No. All right.
I don't know.
It has to be.
Let's ask the expert. We happen to have an expert on our show tonight. Tim, what would you think?
As far as letting people change it?
Yeah, I mean, dramatically changing it. Would that make it harder or easier?
So, I mean, as far as reviewing, difficulty and terrain don't really come into my job for the most part. If people want to rate something a difficulty of 5 and it's not anymore, not my problem. Let the community deal with that.
Oh boy.
Oh, there you go, Jesse. There you go.
No, I like Tim's answer on that.
That's good.
It's out of his hands after that point.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few exceptions to that. Like events, are not supposed to be higher than a difficulty 1, right? It's not hard to find an event. The terrain can be 5.
Well, Yeah.
Oh boy, here we go.
There's a difficulty 5 event
Different
right
show,
close to me.
guys.
Different show,
Different
you're right.
show.
But yeah,
We-
well,
we
so,
should-
so,
Yep.
so on that though, I mean, if the first day let's say a mob cache is out, getting 20 people together, for example, would probably be relatively easy. Next week though, getting 5 people together might be the same difficulty. So changing it from 20 to a 5 in a week probably doesn't actually change the difficulty.
Right. Well, and if we're looking at smaller numbers, like I think Jesse would agree that if you had say 10, and then you wanted hopefully to encourage people to at least show up and do your cache, you could turn down to 3 or 4. Is that
Sure.
how? Okay.
You could set it to 1 if you want, but then it's not a
What's
mob.
the point? Yeah, it's not a mob. No,
It's a lonely mob.
You shouldn't let people set it to 1. That's not good.
You can. It's just lame.
Yeah,
Yeah.
well, you can do it
So
though.
and just to throw another wrinkle in there for people that are thinking about putting one out there, it could also be a stage within a cache, a multi-stage, within a cache of more than one stage. You get to one stage and that has been done as well. So there's a lot of things that can be done with you built a cool program, and then people then get creative, right? So they can do all kinds of stuff after that.
Yeah, I mean, the original intent was to roll this into the Intercaching app. I didn't see a good way of doing it without kind of breaking things, so I'll keep them separate. And you can tie an Intercache into a mob, or vice versa. I just didn't want to put them together. So, but yeah, people can do whatever they want to be creative, within bounds.
Oh, that's interesting. So you could do part mob. You could create it so that you can't get the next clue in Intercache unless you have a mob cache.
Yeah, or just with
completed.
regular multi. Forget about intercaching. You could go to a regular multi. Stage 2 could tell you, all right, go to this website in your phone, and that will tell you, oh, you need to get 4 people together.
Right. I like it.
Now it would be kind of
I suspect that's
it'd
been
be mean not to
attempted.
tell. Yeah, it'd be mean not to tell people that ahead of time, because I'd be kind of pissed off
Right.
if I hiked 4 miles in the woods and got to a stage and go, crap, I need to find 4 more people to join me.
Just start screaming at the mountains.
Yeah.
Kind of like the lady on the History Channel Alone. She's freedom. So you're screaming for people. We need people over here for the mob, guys. Okay. All right. Well, anything else? Go ahead, Jesse.
I hope so. We're talking about Intercache and Mobcache. We can barely scratch the surface, and I hope people go out there and play with these and try them. Not only go find one, but there's some really creative things. And we were joking around a little bit about what you can do tonight, but there's a lot of things you can do with these too. And somebody in the chat room asked, "Are these loggable on geocaching.com?" And I guess we didn't cover that specifically. These are within geocaching, just like a puzzle where you go and solve a Sudoku or something else. This is just a part of geocaching. This is not a separate service. This is nothing where just because it's another website where they host a little, like a clue, like on a puzzle, this is still geocaching. So somebody asked about that. And I just want to make sure we cover that before people think we're talking about a whole nother game. But this is geocaching.com. It's within cache types, and you can go out there and hide a cache using these as part of that cache to solve it.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, as far as I know, all the intercaches that tie into a geocache on geocaching.com, except for one. There was one listed on open caching somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, was it yours?
I wonder who would have done that. Yeah.
I remember somebody asked me. But yeah,
It's like everything he's brought up, every weird thing has been Jesse.
Yeah.
But like Tim just said, I asked first before I did it.
You did.
And
He
said, hey, it was okay, so I did it. Nobody ever found it, by the way, but that's okay.
Oh, really? And I think my answer too was don't list it on Garmin's site at the time, because there was a big feud between Garmin and Groundspeak at the time. So I don't want to contribute to that. So put it on open caching, that's fine, but not the lame Garmin cache site, which is gone now.
Now it's really gone. Yeah. So approximately how many intercaches and mob caches do you think there are
Yeah, so,
active
I
out
mean,
in the
so
world.
it's hard to tell. I know I've got a bookmark site or bookmark of the ones I know about, but there's probably 200 intercaches and there's at least 100, 150 mob caches.
Very
One of these
cool.
days, I really need to. What I'd like to do is put on the site itself is a tie back into the GC code, so I can actually tell, okay, what is this, and maybe I'd require that before you get it published. I don't know, but I haven't done anything like that.
That's very cool. So yes, nothing. Yeah, it's not like one or two out there. There's quite a few. So and we did put the bookmark list in the show notes, so everybody
Okay.
can know that. Once we get the show notes up later tonight, definitely go check it out. We've got all that information, websites. We've got the GC for Return to Oz, and just a lot of good information out there. So, definitely go check that out.
So somebody in the chat room. Sorry, go ahead, Tim.
Go ahead, Tim.
So I suspect that when I release the time constraint thing, there will be a big uptick in that because there's been a lot of requests for that because everyone likes night caches. I mean, not everyone, but a lot of people like night caches, and it's just a variation of doing the fire attacks on trees, right? So I'd love to see what happens with that when I release that. But I've been promising people for 2 years, and I just haven't gotten to it.
And there is a Facebook group, by the way. If you're interested in is there one for mob caches? I know there's one for intercaching.
No, it's all the same group.
Is it okay?
We talk about both.
Okay, cool. So
hopefully I answer. Sometimes I don't see the question. I'm not sure if I don't have my settings set up right. So if you ask a question, don't be offended if I don't answer for a few days or a week.
No problem. But at least people can go out to the Facebook group. Yeah. They can request to join, and they can kind of get in the discussion with some other people too. So that kind of
So somebody mentioned in the chat room, and you talked about lab caches as kind of the genesis for a lot of this stuff. Somebody in the chat room mentioned that they've done where I goes that were not tied to physical geocaches, kind of like and I think where they were going with it is you could build an intercache or a mob cache that just ties into an event that you're doing.
Oh, sure.
As a temporary thing for the event and not even a published geocache. So kind of like somebody's own version of a lab cache to lead to a prize at an event or something like that, right?
Yeah, you don't need to have a listing on Groundspeak at all.
Very cool. Another possibility.
I don't know how many people have done that, but it's certainly doable.
Very cool. Well, anything else from the crew? And I'm intrigued.
Sydney, you want to go first?
Go ahead, Sydney.
Yeah, I'm excited about this now. I have a couple ideas stirring about stories or games or whatever that I want to do. I don't know. I have to work on that, figuring all the details. Like I always have these great ideas like, oh, I should do this or I should do this. And then I'm just like, I don't have enough time to do that. So I have to like sit myself down and write out a story and actually get on there and do it. I'm going to set myself to it.
So because I'm the kind of person I am, and I'm an early adopter, like I said. I love all the new stuff, and these have been out for a while. And actually, there's more mob caches and intercaches separately than there are active webcams left in the United States. So they're not as rare as you'd think. However, they're still kind of new to a lot of people or whatever. So thank you for doing them. I like them. I've played with them a bunch. I've played with a lot more than I've published for myself. And I hope you keep going with them. They're a lot of fun. And I'm going to openly challenge my co-hosts live on the air.
Oh, boy. Here we go.
To publish at least one of the types. And I'm going to keep
bugging
them every show until they do it. Okay, the other one then.
Okay.
So intercache for you and at least a mob cache or an intercache for Gary too. So you don't have to answer now. I'm just going to bug you every week until you do it. So how about that, Tim? Is that good enough for promotion? Okay.
I can challenge her in our local Facebook group too if she's not doing one. So.
Oh, I love it.
Getting called out now.
Called out. So
yeah,
anyway,
I'll get right out.
Thank you again for doing it.
See.
I'm there for you, Sydney. It's okay.
Thanks. You want to program that for me, buddy? No, I'm just kidding.
Tim, we're gonna let you have the last word on this tonight. Any last thoughts?
No last thoughts. Just let me know if there's things if anyone has any thoughts or suggestions. I can't promise I'll get too many times soon, but probably sooner than I had in the past. Because, like I said, come September, I'll have time. Okay. Hopefully, I keep saying that.
Yep. Well, we We do. We really appreciate you coming on and talking about these, and we do appreciate all the work that you and the different reviewers do. It's a lot of times a thankless task. I always try to, and I encourage everybody to do this, but I always put a note, like especially if you do, like if you have them post, like I had my reviewer publish 12 caches last week at an event. And so what I try to do is remind people to email the reviewer and let them know that you appreciate them and thank them for this job that they do for all of us, because without them, the sport would be it'd be chaos. And so we really do appreciate what you guys do.
It's always nice to see a note of thanks, because most times we don't get that. So
yeah, we love you guys and gals for doing that. So we appreciate it. Coming up on the show next week, show 60. Wow, can you believe we're at show 60? We're gonna have Chris of the Northwest on. I don't know who he is, but somebody set that up. So no, I'm kidding. Chris Umfenauer will be on. We're gonna talk about some cool caches not to miss if you're up his way, up in the Northwest by Seattle. Week after that, we're gonna have Doc Firewood back on the show. She's gonna talk about geocaching slumps and fascinating, I think, discussion about what she's up to and some of her thoughts on that topic. And of course, we'll chime in and give ours as well. And then the week after that, we kind of did a little bit of an audible call on show 62. We're going to talk about geocaching regrets, caches we wish we had not missed. Fascinating. Going to be fun to talk about that one. And of course, disappointing too, because I have a lot of geocaching regrets as well. So we hope you enjoyed the show tonight. Please email us your comments at geocachetalk@gmail.com. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter. The show is at geocachetalk. I'm at Gary Slinkard, one word. Jesse at Memphis_Mafia. Sydney at ShermanatorGC. And Facebook at facebook.com/geocachetalk. Show can be found on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, Podcastpedia. I don't know. Just look around. You can find out there somewhere. As well as the Geocache Talk website. It's always there. So, you can always get it there at geocachetalk.com. Don't forget to click on the subscribe button below, and that will help you, give you a reminder, and so you can see and hear the show on a weekly basis. And until next week, don't just talk about geocaching. Go do an intercache or set one up, as I'm apparently have to, or be a part of a mob cache and go geocaching. Good night, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
good night.
Good night.